I don't know if it was intended to be a joke, but the title Deadline is very funny in the context of Blackpink's career. Blackpink is nothing if not a patient person's game. Their career has unfolded in very long intervals of waiting, punctuated by moments of overwhelming visibility. Frustrating as it is from a fan's perspective, this has undoubtedly helped their reach in the long run. One major feature of Blackpink's legacy has been the cultural weight of their releases, how much of a community event it turns into for fans of K-pop and pop music in general. And I think the long wait times in between releases have certainly contributed to this success. These past 2 hiatuses have been especially grueling, however. I don't resent that they've been gone, and actually, as a Blink, I think the period of solo releases and independence for this group has been the highlight of my time as a fan of Blackpink. The past 2 group releases have solidified this group's mythos in less than ideal ways, is what I mean. The vision for right now centers on preserving that mythic stature through production and presentation, while the music itself follows a very familiar course. This has always been the story of Blackpink, but there were moments in 2020's The Album that seemed to signal a greater sense of artistic control that was on the horizon, but that never really came to fruition. Lovesick Girls easily remains one of the group's most meaningful musical statements. Supported by member involvement, it introduced a dimension to this group's artistry that hasn't really been captured since. That sense of authorship slightly expanded the group's creative identity before the next era put us right back on the old track and provided us with an even clearer vision of this group's mission statement going forward. Pink Venom captures the foundation of Blackpink's creative identity very succinctly. It presents the group exactly as YG Entertainment has always framed them, through a musical structure that feels immediately recognizable. Each release means to stretch that framework through production choices that chase a fresh sensation. And this creative philosophy can bring us all the way to today with the 2026 mini-album Deadline. The title of this album, also the name of the tour, has been described as, quote, an opportunity to draw out extreme concentration at an irreversible moment. As a concept, it fits pretty naturally with the musical and lyrical momentum expressed by the album's 2 singles, Jump and Go. Each title works as a command, right, that propels the listener toward motion while time is closing in. From this, and getting into the album itself, this shared but differing senses of urgency makes Go feel like the album's actual introduction. I really think it should have been the pre-release single that ended the 3-year hiatus. The song serves as a narrative return both for Blackpink and for us as the audience, outlining that there is no real reason why they've been gone for as long as they have, but when they call for us, we're gonna come. I sense a very nautical or maritime current running through the arrangement here, especially during the pre-chorus. Steel pan percussion glides across the track while a slow-moving synth traces the horizon in the background. A calling the ships back to harbor kind of vibe. And it's this kind of imagery that shapes the entire song for me. Each section carries the atmosphere of ships crossing over the harbor at sunset. The pre-choruses give us a surprising amount of intimacy. I guess you could say something similar happens at the beginning of How You Like That, but Go really dwells on this sentiment. The song is sort of tempered from ever being incredibly explosive by its insanely heartfelt pre-choruses, and we reach an overwhelming climax in the bridge. But of course, we have to talk about the rightfully divisive instrumental breaks. Narratively, I don't really know where to place them or how to make sense of them besides existing to translate the song title and album's narrative about momentum and action in a make or break moment. I feel like I've been trapped inside of a washing machine, which I guess you could compare to the unforgiving nature of the high tides, you know, the harshness of traveling at sea and making your way home to keep in line with my swashbuckling perspective on this. You can certainly feel the momentum, right? The synths rise in brief swells that evoke a hand settling firmly on the steering wheel as the sea begins to fight back. Okay, I'll take my pirate hat off and stop with the maritime metaphors, but I really do feel that way about this song. What has allowed me to appreciate Go so much is that high-stakes moment in the pre-chorus. By comparison, I can sit myself within the feeling the instrumental breaks in the chorus take us to, but I can acknowledge that it's a bit ambiguous and maybe underwhelming in the wrong context. I will say, I think Go does work best with headphones in while you're walking somewhere or on some kind of transportation. I feel unstoppable when listening to the song in those situations, but this is my understanding of Go. Again, I think it should have been the pre-release over Jump. I don't mind it as the title track, but it does lose a bit of steam or momentum in that sense for me. Also, when considering the AI music video, I'm not interested. It does express the oceanic visuals I had imagined, but there's just no soul to it. I don't really care, and it's a shame because Blackpink has such a strong reputation for music videos and cinematography. YG was one of the best, probably the best, once upon a time. I understand that time constraints and conflicting schedules impacted this release a lot, but I would rather have waited longer if it meant we got fully realized visuals from real artists. That's all I'm going to say on that. But now, transitioning into another controversy with this album as we progress into the the B-sides, 2 of the songs on Deadline list producer credits for Dr. Luke, a producer whose presence in the industry is very contentious, you could say, following Kesha's allegations of abuse. How do we deal with this? I believe we should condemn this collaboration, but we run the risk of obscuring a much broader and systemic problem if we don't talk about this carefully. If we were to evaluate every piece of music through the moral history of contributors, I think we would find that maybe 90% of the music we listen to is involved in similar, if not the same exact ethical issues. Unfortunately, power structures in music have protected some very bad people in the industry for a very long time, and clearly continue to do so. Additionally, production and writing credits do not reflect the degree or nature of someone's involvement, so a name that's listed on a track could signal that that person was fully hands-on as a creative director, or it could simply mean that they were a distant contribution in a collaborative writing camp, which K-pop relies on a lot. So not being able to know these specifics here also complicates judgment, and it leaves us to navigate a very uncomfortable space, probably by design, right? Still, regardless of how much he was involved, these credits translate into financial compensation and continued industry presence. And in a moment in history where many victims have come forward to speak about their experiences, I think choosing to center technical contributions or artistic merit risks sidelighting the very real harm at the heart of this controversy. So while there is nuance to be had, and it's important to not reduce this issue into something overly reductive, I find it personally difficult to engage with these tracks on musical terms. There is an argument Blackpink still don't have incredible leveraging power when it comes to A&R, and if I were to really go out of my way to give this the benefit of the doubt, I'm sure there's a greater likelihood that even if Blackpink are at liberty to look through demos, I doubt they're taking the time to look at every producer who's credited on them. We simply don't know. The problem as it exists for me is that he is credited and he's getting paid for this. Dr. Luke is nowhere near the first or last controversial person in the industry. Part of singling him out feels performative in that way, and I'm a bit worried about that, but I also take no personal issue in making an example out of him. So I won't be speaking in great detail about these 2 songs. It also helps that I don't particularly like them. So Me and My Girls is like the pretty savage of this album. It reminds me a lot of Goddess Level by Got the Beat, and then Champion functions like the tally of this album, an anthemic song that, if I had to guess, means to capitalize off of the recent success of Teddy's with the K-pop Demon Hunters soundtrack. Yeah, I think that's all that I have to say, which leaves us with Fxxboy, a melancholic pop rock track that settles us into a reflective yet exhausted mood to close out the album. I appreciate how this song commits itself to narrative. It's something Blackpink does so well when the members are given lyrical room to inhabit a perspective. It gives the members a chance to show off their tonal control, and as a result of that, gives the song a great sense of focus. The almost carelessly plucked guitar establishes an atmosphere of resignation that bleeds across the arrangement. The lyrics portray someone whose sense of self has been completely reshaped by a painful relationship. There's an interesting story buried within this premise, but the emotional framing never fully draws it into focus for some reason. The restrained musical delivery of the instrumentation suggests that the dust has already been settled, while the lyrics in contrast continue to justify why our narrator decided to tear everything down. Setting-wise, I position our narrator maybe still in the love interest department after she's glitter-bombed the perimeter, and rightfully so. She's just reflecting on everything that's happened and why she did it. My thoughts keep returning to songs like See You Later, Hard to Love, and You Never Know. Those songs embraced the same emotional territory with much stronger senses of conviction to them. Fxxboy kind of just leaves me appreciating the intention while still wishing the music carried the same weight as the story that it wants to tell. It's like there's a dissonance between the instrumentation and what the song actually wants to convey emotionally. Overall, looking at the Deadline album, I was gonna call this inoffensive, but I don't know that I can. I'm feeling a little bit offended. As a longtime fan of Blackpink, getting to see the members stretch their wings in their own ways for solo albums has made the Deadline album feel kind of like jury duty for them. I really appreciate Jump and Go as singles. I actually think they're in the upper echelon of Blackpink releases musically, but a 3-year hiatus for an otherwise uninspired mini album, I feel like that real estate fish from SpongeBob, except I did kind of know YG was going to play in my face to some extent. It's a bargain you have to accept, but this is a little egregious, if I can be honest. YG is proving that they simply cannot keep up with the modern market, and for a growing number of reasons. Their worst tendencies have led them to embracing AI, which is going to be a hard sell for some people going forward, among other things. In hindsight, I think I would have loved this to just be a digital single, which actually would have been a lot more fitting and funny for an album called Deadline, to just be one single and a promoted B-side. I can kind of roll with it, but anyways, I think these are all of my thoughts here. Love the singles. Definitely loved the singles for sure. Thank you for watching this. If you did, let me know what you think about this album, your favorite songs. Does Deadline work for you overall? And if so, why? I'm very interested to know other people's perspectives on this. But yeah, thanks again for watching. Subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time.